My parents gave away my childhood room to my cousin, so I moved out silently, and now they're begging me to come back home. I'm a 22-year-old guy, and I just moved out of my parents' house a few months ago. Not in a proud, coming-of-age kind of way, but in the if I stayed any longer I was going to lose my mind kind of way. To be honest, I don't even know if I should call it my home. It never felt like one. I've always been the extra, the leftover, and the one you invite to dinner because you feel obligated, not because you want them there. Birthdays? Forgotten. School plays? Missed. Family vacations? I was either left behind or added in last minute when someone else canceled. But the worst part wasn't being invisible. It was being compared. Compared to Jared. Jared, my cousin, the walking golden boy. My mom's face would light up when he walked into a room. My dad would actually laugh at his dumb stories. I mean, full belly laughs like he was hearing stand-up comedy. Meanwhile, when I talked, it was either not now or, why are you always so negative? Still, I stayed quiet. I did what I was supposed to do. Worked 2 part-time jobs, paid rent, cleaned up after myself. Tried not to rock the boat. I thought, maybe if I was low maintenance enough, they'd at least respect me. That illusion shattered one random Tuesday. I came home from a shift at the grocery store, exhausted, ready to collapse into bed. I opened the door to my room and froze. It wasn't mine anymore. My posters were gone. My desk was gone. My clothes? Stuffed into a suitcase and shoved in the hallway like trash. And there was Jared, setting up his custom-built gaming PC on my dresser. He looked at me, smirked, and said, "Oh, didn't they tell you?" They didn't, and that was the moment I realized I wasn't just the extra. I was disposable. Jared was always the golden boy, and I don't say that with bitterness.
I say it like someone describing gravity.
It just was. Ever since we were kids, Jared had this weird glow about him. He was the kind of person who could spill a drink on your shirt and somehow you'd end up apologizing. Teachers loved him. Neighbors adored him. My parents? They acted like he was the son they wished they had. And me? I was just there. Jared's parents, my aunt and uncle, went through a rough divorce last year. And when things got messy, my parents stepped up by offering Jared a place to stay. I didn't object. I figured it would be temporary, and honestly, I wanted to believe we were doing the right thing. But it didn't take long before the lines started to blur. At first, he slept in the guest room. Then his stuff started migrating. Shoes by the front door. His jacket thrown over the living room couch. My dad gave him a spare key without even mentioning it to me. My mom started making dinner for him like it was some VIP meal plan. Meanwhile, I was heating up leftovers and doing my own laundry like I didn't even exist. The praise never stopped. Jared fixed the leaky faucet. Did you hear? Jared got a B+ in bio. We're so lucky to have Jared here. He really lifts the energy. I could have told them I cured cancer, and they would have asked me to keep it down because Jared was napping. I remember once, my mom looked at me across the dinner table, Jared sitting between us like a golden throne, and said, "Why can't you be more like him?" I didn't even answer. I just stared at my plate, wondering when exactly I became a guest in my own house. But nothing prepared me for what came next. It was a Thursday night, and I just wrapped a 12-hour shift at the store. My feet felt like bricks, my back was screaming, and all I wanted was to crash in my room, throw on some music, and shut the world out for a few hours. But when I opened the front door, something felt off. The house was too quiet. Not the peaceful kind, the eerie kind. I walked up the stairs, kicked off my shoes halfway up, and turned the corner to my room. And that's when my stomach dropped. My door was wide open. Inside, my room looked like it had been robbed. No posters. No desk, my bookshelf, gone. The blankets from my bed, stripped and replaced with some sleek gray set Jared probably picked out. His LED lights were glowing blue around the edges of the walls, casting this cold hue over everything. It didn't even smell like my room anymore. It smelled like cologne and energy drinks. And there he was, Jared. Sitting in the chair I bought with my first paycheck, clicking away at his mechanical keyboard like he owned the place. He didn't look up, just said, "Oh, hey, what's up?" I couldn't speak at first. I was trying to make sense of what I was seeing. My closet was cracked open and stuffed with his hoodies. My mini fridge was missing. Even the art I painted in high school. Gone. Finally, I choked out, "Where's my stuff?" He turned, smirking like it was no big deal. "Oh, your mom moved it. Said you wouldn't mind." I needed more space and, well, the guest room was kind of small. I didn't answer. I just backed into the hallway where my suitcase, my entire life, was sitting like a dog waiting to be picked up from the shelter. And that's when I heard her voice from the kitchen. "Oh, you're home. Isn't it great?" Jared's finally settled in. Settled in, like I was never there to begin with. I stood there for what felt like a full minute, just staring at the hallway wall. I could hear the clink of dishes in the sink, Jared's stupid keyboard clicks echoing from his new room, and the low hum of the fridge in the kitchen. It was like life just went on without me. I walked downstairs slow, trying not to explode. My mom was drying a plate, humming. She looked up, smiled like we were in some wholesome family sitcom, and said, "We didn't want to bother you while you were working. Figured we'd just go ahead and get him settled." I blinked. "You gave away my room," she shrugged. "It's just a room, honey. Jared's going through so much, and your space had the most natural light. He needs a proper place to focus, you know? He had the guest room," I said, barely keeping my voice steady. "That was his space," she waved a hand. "That room's tiny and barely gets sun. This is just a small sacrifice, sweetheart. You're barely home anyway. Small sacrifice." My room, my one space where I could breathe, had been reduced to a logistical convenience. I turned to my dad, who was scrolling on his phone like none of this concerned him. "Dad?" He glanced up. "Your mom's right. Don't make this into a big thing. Jared needs help and we're a family. We help each other." Funny. I couldn't remember the last time they helped me. I swallowed the lump in my throat. My chest felt tight, like the air had been sucked out of the house. "Where am I supposed to sleep?" I asked. My mom smiled again. "Oh, just for now, the couch. It's comfy. We even washed the cushions for you. Like that made it okay. Like that erased what they'd taken." I didn't respond. I just walked past them, suitcase in hand, and laid down on the couch, heart racing, hands trembling, trying to ignore the sound of Jared laughing upstairs. The next morning, I woke up to Jared blasting music from my speakers upstairs. Not earbuds. Not a respectful low volume. Full volume bass shaking the living room walls while I lay on the couch like a squatter in my own house. I didn't eat breakfast. Couldn't. My stomach was a knot of anger, confusion, and humiliation. I waited until my parents were sitting at the dining table with their coffee before I said anything. "I want my room back," I said. Calm but direct. My mom set down her mug, lips tightening. "We've already discussed this." "No, you discussed it." "I was never even asked," she sighed, looking over at my dad. "He's being dramatic again. Dramatic." That word lit something in me. "You gave away my room without telling me. You shoved my stuff in a suitcase like I don't matter. And now I'm being dramatic?" My dad put his mug down with a clink. "Watch your tone. Jared is going through a hard time right now. His parents are divorcing. He doesn't need more stress. And I'm supposed to just disappear so he can feel comfortable?" "You're not disappearing," my mom said, frowning like I was being unreasonable. "You're still here, aren't you? You just need to adjust. This is temporary." But we both knew it wasn't. Jared had already claimed the room, rearranged everything, and taken over like a king on a throne. There was nothing temporary about it. I work 2 jobs. I pay rent. I'm barely even home. And when I am, I just want a place to sleep that doesn't smell like feet and sound like a nightclub, I said, voice cracking now. "You should be happy to help family," my dad replied. Like that line fixed everything. That was the moment I knew. It didn't matter how much I contributed. I was always going to be the second-class citizen in their eyes, and Jared? He played innocent through the whole thing. Said nothing. Just smirked when our eyes met. He knew he'd won. 2 days later, I got a call from my grandmother. Not the warmest woman in the world, but definitely the most observant. She doesn't usually call unless something's wrong, or unless she knows something she needs to say. I stepped outside to answer. The air was cold, sharp. I needed that clarity. She started with the usual polite small talk, but I could tell her voice was tight, cautious. Finally, she asked, "Everything all right at home?" I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. "Not really." There was a pause. Then softly she said, "I thought so. Your mother told me you offered your room to Jared. I nearly dropped the phone. What? I asked. I didn't offer anything. They just gave it away. Another pause. A heavier one. She said you were being generous, that you volunteered to move out so Jared could settle in and feel comfortable after the divorce. She told the whole family that. My hands were shaking. My throat burned. They lied, I whispered. I figured, Grandma said, and I could hear the sadness in her voice. I know you. You've never been the type to offer up your own bed just to be polite, especially not to someone like Jared. Why would they say that? I asked, heart pounding. Because it makes them look like good parents, and it keeps Jared's halo polished. It hit me then. This wasn't just thoughtlessness. This wasn't just poor communication. It was a deliberate narrative. They knew what they were doing. They made me the villain of a story they wrote without me. I ended the call, walked back inside, and sat on the couch in silence, staring at the blank TV screen like it might give me answers. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't overreacting. They planned this, and from that moment on, I decided I wouldn't give them a single piece of me ever again. Something inside me shut off after that call with Grandma. Like a switch had been flipped. Not anger, not grief, just numbness. A cold, clear silence that settled over everything. I stopped speaking unless I absolutely had to. No more good morning, no more small talk. I didn't even look them in the eye, and they didn't notice, or pretended not to. That was the clearest message of all. I started coming home later, staying out longer. At first it was just to avoid them, but eventually it became something more. I started crashing at my friend Mateo's place after late shifts. His apartment wasn't big, but the couch didn't feel like a punishment. There were no landmines to dodge. No smug Jared hovering. Mateo asked once, "Why don't you just move out?" I didn't answer. Not because I didn't want to. I just didn't know how to explain the feeling of being evicted emotionally before you ever physically leave. But that idea planted itself. And it grew. I began looking up cheap studio apartments on my breaks at work. Nothing fancy. Just 4 walls, a lock, and a door that no one else had a key to. I didn't tell anyone. Not Mateo, not my parents. Not even my grandma. Meanwhile, back at the house, Jared was thriving. Hosting game nights in my room. Ordering takeout with my parents and laughing like he'd always belonged there. One night, I heard them through the walls, my mom laughing at one of his jokes, then saying, "You're like the son we always needed." That was it. I quietly walked back to the couch, sat down, and made my decision. I wouldn't fight. I wouldn't beg. I wouldn't explain. I'd just
Leave, no announcement, no drama.
no note. I'd let them live in the story they wrote, without me. It happened on a Sunday morning. They were out. Brunch with Jared, of course. Some new waffle place across town. My mom had left a note on the fridge for me, but it wasn't even addressed. Just said, "Back by 2. Don't forget to clean up your dishes." That was the final push I didn't know I needed. I walked upstairs, for the first time in weeks, and stood outside my room. I could still hear Jared's playlist humming through the door, even though no one was there. I didn't go in. I couldn't. Instead, I opened the hallway closet where my suitcase had been jammed weeks ago. I took it out, zipped it open, started packing what little I had left. A few books, some hoodies, my sketch pad, chargers, toiletries. It was surreal, like I was robbing my own house. The whole thing took 20 minutes. When I was done, I set the suitcase by the door and walked into the kitchen. I placed my key gently on the counter. Next to it, I put the one thing that might sting, a printed photo of me, my parents, and Jared from a family BBQ 2 summers ago. Back when I thought things could be normal, I didn't write a note. No goodbye, no closure, just silence. Then I walked out. I didn't cry, not even when I closed the door behind me. Not when I tossed my bag into the back of Mateo's car, not even when we drove away and the house disappeared in the rearview mirror. What I felt wasn't sadness. It was relief, no more begging to be seen. No more being the extra. For the first time in years, I felt weightless, and they didn't even know I was gone. 2 weeks. That's how long it took them to realize I was gone. Not 2 hours. Not 2 days. 2 weeks. I was sleeping on Mateo's couch with a pillow that smelled like his dog and a thrift store blanket that barely covered my feet. But I was sleeping better than I had in months, I blocked their numbers on day 3. Not out of spite, out of self-preservation. I knew if I left a door open, even a crack, they'd guilt me right back into that house. That couch. That lie. I figured I'd hear from them eventually, but I wasn't prepared for how it happened. One night, Mateo was scrolling through Facebook and suddenly said, "Yo, your mom just posted a family photo." I froze. He turned the screen to me. There they were, my parents, Jared, and my aunt. Standing in the backyard, all smiles, grilling burgers. Jared was front and center. I wasn't tagged. I wasn't even mentioned, but the comments, "Where's your son? Did he take the picture? Haven't seen him in a while." That's when the phone calls started. First, it was just missed calls from Mom's cell. Then came the texts. "Where are you? We need to talk. Why are you doing this?" No apologies, no ownership. Just confusion and control. Then came the kicker. "Come home. We can fix this." Fix what exactly? The silence? The lies? The fact that they never once thought to ask how I felt before giving away the only space I had left? I didn't answer. I just stared at the screen until the message disappeared into the archive. And that night, lying on Mateo's couch with a single lamp flickering above me, I whispered the same thing over and over like a prayer: "I'm not going back." By the 3rd week of sleeping on Mateo's couch, I had started to accept that this was my life now. Not glamorous, not ideal, but mine. I kept my head down at work, focused on my shifts, and poured all my free time into scrolling through Craigslist listings and budgeting every cent I had. Then one night, something weird happened. My supervisor, Dina, who usually barely said more than "clock in on time," pulled me aside after my shift. "I've noticed you've been picking up extra hours," she said, arms crossed but not in a hostile way. "And you've never called in sick, ever," I blinked. Yeah, just trying to stay busy, I guess." She gave me this long look like she could see more than I was saying. Then she nodded slowly. "We've got a position opening up. Assistant floor manager. Pays better, more stable hours. You interested?" I thought she was joking. I actually laughed, but she didn't. "I'm serious," she said. "You've got potential. You work hard." That doesn't go unnoticed. It was the first time in months, maybe years, that someone looked me in the eye and saw value. I took the promotion. The extra money wasn't a lot, but it was enough to make a difference. I found a tiny studio, barely the size of a hotel room, but it had a door I could lock, a bed that was mine, and a window that looked out at the city lights. I bought a cheap lamp, a secondhand mattress, and a frying pan. That was it. But for the first time, I woke up in the morning without a pit in my stomach. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was building. And just when I thought the past was finally behind me, Jared made sure to drag me right back in. I was halfway through a shift, restocking cereal boxes, when my phone buzzed on the shelf. Normally I wouldn't check, but something told me to. It was a message from my aunt. "Call me ASAP, it's about Jared." My stomach twisted. I stepped into the back room and called her, already bracing myself. She answered on the first ring, panicked. "Do you know what Jared's done?" I didn't. But I was about to. Turns out Jared had been caught shoplifting at a tech store in the mall. Not candy or petty nonsense, headphones. Expensive ones. When security cornered him, he did what cowards do. He blamed someone else. "He told them he learned it from you," my aunt said, her voice trembling. "Said you used to steal from stores all the time and he just picked it up from being around you." I was speechless. "He what?" "I finally managed. He said you used to steal when you were younger, that you bragged about it. That's why he thought it was okay," I laughed. A short, stunned bark of disbelief. "That's complete bullshit. I've never stolen anything in my life." "I know," she said quietly. "I told the police it didn't sound like you. But your parents? They didn't even hesitate. They believed him. That part didn't surprise me. It hurt, sure. But it didn't shock me. What did shake me was how far Jared was willing to go to protect his golden image, even if it meant dragging my name through the mud. But karma's a funny thing. Mall security pulled the footage. Jared was clearly alone. He stashed the box in his jacket and tried to walk out like it was nothing. The lie unraveled faster than he could backpedal, and just like that, the perfect cousin mask cracked, but I wasn't ready for what came next, because for the first time in years, my parents started calling me, not to yell, but to apologize. The first apology text came from my mom. "We're so sorry. We didn't know the whole story. Please call us. No hello, no how are you." Just an instant pivot from blind belief to desperate regret. I didn't answer. I didn't even open the message for a full day. Then my dad texted, "We were wrong about Jared. Can we talk?" That one hit harder. Because if he was texting, Mr. Emotionally Absent himself, things had to be bad. I found out the full story through my aunt. Jared didn't just shoplift. He'd been helping himself to cash from my dad's wallet for weeks. Small amounts, nothing huge, but it added up. The night after he got caught, Jared tried to blame his behavior on stress and feeling displaced. Said he acted out because he missed his old life. My mom apparently cried. My dad was furious, but not at Jared, at themselves. That surprised me. Even more shocking, Jared packed up and left the next morning. My aunt took him back in, reluctantly. She told me he's on thin ice and attending therapy. With him gone, the house was quiet. Too quiet. That's when the flood of messages started. "We miss you. The house feels empty without you. Come home. We want to make things right." But none of those messages contained what I needed to hear. Not once did they say, "We were wrong for how we treated you." They were mourning the absence, not the damage. And that's a big difference. I sat in my tiny apartment, surrounded by the silence I had built for myself. A silence that wasn't punishment, but peace. They wanted me back, but they still didn't understand what they'd done. And honestly, I wasn't sure they ever would. It was Mateo who convinced me to go. "Not for them," he said, tossing me his spare car keys. "For you. Just to see it.
On your terms. I didn't tell my parents I was coming."
I wanted to walk into that house like a stranger and feel whatever I needed to feel. Anger, sadness, maybe nothing at all. When I pulled into the driveway, it was surreal. The porch light flickered like always. My dad's car sat in its usual crooked spot. It looked exactly the same, like no time had passed. I rang the doorbell. My mom opened the door and froze. Her mouth opened slightly like she wanted to say a million things and couldn't choose one. "Hi," I said flatly. She stepped aside. "Come in, please." The house smelled like lemon cleaner and old guilt. I walked through the hallway, noticing picture frames with Jared still on display. My photo was gone. No surprise there, and then I saw it, my old room. The door was open. Inside, it looked untouched. The LED lights were gone. My old bed was back, in the frame at least. A few of my posters had been rehung crookedly, like someone tried to fix what they broke without understanding what it meant. It looked like a replica. Like a set from a movie about someone else's life. My dad stood behind me. "We were hoping you'd stay for dinner." "I'm not here for dinner," I said. "Just came to see it." That's all. I didn't yell. Didn't cry. I didn't even sit down. I stayed for 20 minutes, long enough to walk through every room and realize something important. This wasn't my home anymore. It never really was. I left without saying goodbye, and the silence I left behind said everything they needed to hear. 3 days after the visit, my phone rang again. I let it go to voicemail. I already knew what it was. I finally listened around midnight, sitting on the edge of my bed, my real bed, in my real space, with no one knocking on my door or taking what wasn't theirs. It was my mom. Her voice was shaky, like she'd rehearsed what to say and still couldn't get it right. "Sweetheart, we miss you. The house isn't the same. We made mistakes. Jared's gone. Things are different now, please. Come home." I didn't cry. I didn't even feel tempted. They wanted to reset the board as if this was all just a misunderstanding. As if repainting my room and saying "come home" erased everything that came before. I called back the next day, not because I was wavering, but because I needed to say it out loud. My mom answered, hopeful. "Hi, I'm so glad you called. I'm not moving back," I said. Calm, firm, no bitterness. Just fact. There was a pause. "But we're trying."
We really are.
"We can fix this." "I know you want to," I said. "But it's not just about Jared. It's about the years you made me feel like I didn't belong. Like I was always the backup plan." My dad got on the line. "We didn't mean to—" "I know," I interrupted. "But you did. And that's what matters." More silence. Then my mom whispered, So what now? Now I live my life. You live yours. I'm not shutting you out, but I'm done shrinking myself to fit into a place that was never meant for me. I ended the call gently, and for the first time, they had no response because this time they couldn't spin the story. I'd already written my own. A week after that final call, I sat down at my tiny kitchen table with a pen and a blank sheet of paper. Not an email, not a text. A real letter, something they couldn't scroll past or delete. I didn't write it to convince them of anything. I wrote it because I needed to say everything I'd carried for years. The words that had sat on my chest like stones since I was a kid, I started with the truth. You've treated me like an outsider in my own home since I was old enough to notice. The things I accomplished were met with silence, while Jared's bare minimum was celebrated like gold. You didn't see it because you didn't want to, but I felt it. Every day. I told them how it felt to be ignored during birthdays, skipped over in conversations, left out of decisions, like a guest at my own dinner table. I described the day they gave my room away in vivid detail, how my posters were gone, how my things were stuffed into a suitcase like I was being evicted from my own life. I told them about the night I overheard my mom say Jared was the son they always needed. And then I wrote the line that broke me. You didn't lose your room. You lost your son. Not because he was angry, but because he finally realized you were never looking for him in the first place. I ended it with, don't write back to apologize. Don't try to fix it with family dinners or text messages. I don't hate you. I'm not even angry anymore. But I've built a peace you were never able to give me, and I plan on keeping it. I folded the letter. Slid it into an envelope, but I didn't mail it because it wasn't for them. It was for me. And finally, I could breathe again. These days, I wake up to sunlight filtering through the window of my little studio apartment. There's no sound of stomping feet, no one yelling from downstairs, no Jared blasting music through stolen speakers. Just quiet, just peace. I make my own coffee. I sit by the window and sketch while the city stirs awake. It's not much. Secondhand furniture, creaky floors, a leaky faucet I still haven't fixed. But it's mine. I still talk to Mateo. He checks in often, always making sure I'm okay. He was the first person who made me feel like I wasn't crazy for expecting to be seen. We joke about the early days, about how I slept on his couch, how we shared instant noodles and whispered about the future like it was some far-off planet. But I've made progress. I've started taking evening classes again. I'm learning graphic design, something I put off for years because no one at home ever encouraged anything that didn't fit their plan. Now I chase what makes me feel alive. As for my parents, I haven't blocked them, but I haven't answered either. Once a month, my mom sends a message. We're thinking about you. I believe her, but that doesn't mean I owe her access to the new version of me. I'm not angry anymore. That's the wild part. The hate burned out eventually, replaced by something stronger, clarity. I see them for who they are, and I see myself, finally, for who I was always becoming. I was never the difficult one, never the selfish one, never the scapegoat they convinced me I was. I was just the one who refused to keep shrinking. And now, in this quiet little space surrounded by the life I chose, I finally understand the truth. I didn't lose a family. I found myself, and that was the best trade I ever made.